Have you ever felt like a company isn't just selling you stuff anymore, but quietly figuring out how much you're willing to tolerate? Because once you really start looking at Bethesda, it stops feeling like they're just making games and starts feeling like they've mastered something else entirely. Overpriced merch, recycled content, features that don't show up until there's a price tag attached. And the craziest part, most people don't even realize it's happening. But once you notice the pattern, you can't unsee it. It starts off harmless, the merch store. At a glance, it looks like exactly what you'd expect. Bundles, collectibles, themed items. Stuff made for fans. But the moment you actually break one of these bundles down, the illusion starts to fall apart. They look stacked, like you're getting a ton of value. But most of what's inside? It's filler. Pins, patches, postcards. Cheap items that exist for one reason: to make the box feel full. And that's how the price quietly climbs without you questioning it. Then you notice something that makes even less sense. Some of these bundles don't even include the game they're built around. Think about that for a second. You're buying a product centered around a game without getting the game. It feels like a deal, but once you strip it down, there's almost nothing there. And yet, people still buy it. Which is where things start getting uncomfortable. Because once you move past the bundles, the individual items get even harder to defend. Take the Vault 76 premium jacket. At that price, you expect something polished, something that actually looks high-end. But what people saw instead looked more like factory sample photos. Not styled, not refined, just basic images you'd expect from a bulk supplier. And yet, it's priced like luxury. That gap between expectation and reality is hard to ignore. Because the price tells you one thing, but everything else tells you something completely different. So you start asking the obvious question: are people paying for quality? Or are they just paying for the logo? Because once that question hits, a lot of these products stop making sense. And somehow, it still gets worse. At some point, you run into something so ridiculous it almost feels like a joke. In this case, it's a small plastic desk lamp. No premium materials. No standout features. Barely even branded, just a generic mushroom cloud design. Price: around $90. And somehow, it doesn't even come with batteries. Now that sounds minor, but it opened the door to something even stranger. When people started comparing it to other products, like controllers, they noticed something odd. Standard versions usually include batteries. But some buyers claim that certain themed versions didn't. Now, to be clear, this isn't fully confirmed. Reports vary. And it could come down to inconsistencies, but the fact that people are even questioning it, that's the interesting part. Because when you're paying more for a themed version, you don't expect to get less. And this is still just surface level stuff. Because once you get into the games themselves, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. The moment you step into Fallout 76, everything starts to click. The item shop looks normal at first. Cosmetics, bundles, limited time offers. Nothing unusual. Until you actually start paying attention. Because a lot of the new content isn't new. It's older items, sometimes use old, being brought back, slightly changed, and sold again. Maybe a different color. Maybe a small tweak. That's it. The same structures show up again and again. Reused, repackaged, resold. Add a minor variation, and suddenly it's new content. Individually, it doesn't seem like a big deal. But once you notice how often it happens, it starts to feel deliberate. And that's when it hits you this isn't just cosmetics anymore. Because Fallout 4 takes it a step further. This is where paid creations come in. On paper, it sounds great. New content, support for creators, more ways to expand the game. But then you see what's actually being sold. A single weapon for a couple of dollars. No quest. No story. Just the item. And suddenly, the value feels off. Because if you break the entire game down like this, you'd be spending way more than it was ever worth. What makes it even stranger is the inconsistency. Some creator-made content looks polished, detailed, and worth checking out. Meanwhile, some official listings feel rushed. Bare-bones descriptions. Minimal effort in presentation. It creates this weird situation where unofficial content sometimes looks better than the official stuff. And at that point, you can't help but ask, what are you really paying for? But even this isn't where it peaks. Because then there's Fallout first. A subscription inside a game you already paid for. Now to be fair, it does offer real benefits. Private worlds, extra storage, monthly currency. Things that genuinely improve the experience. But here's the part that doesn't sit right. A lot of these features don't feel like bonuses. They feel like fixes. Without them, parts of the game feel slow, restrictive, frustrating. With them, everything suddenly works better. And that creates a very specific feeling, like the problem was always there, just waiting to be solved for a price. Not every feature falls into that category. Some are genuinely useful, but when you look at the system as a whole, it's hard not to question the design behind it. And when you step back, everything starts connecting. Because this isn't just about one system. Look at Skyrim. It's been re-released over and over again. New editions, new platforms, constant updates. Now compare that to Fallout. Fewer releases. Less attention. Longer gaps. And that contrast feels intentional. It starts to look like a strategy. Focus on what can be sold again and again, and keep finding ways to bring it back, even if it means revisiting the same content repeatedly. And when you connect that to everything else, the merch, the microtransactions, the subscriptions, it all lines up. Because at this point, it's not just one issue. It's a pattern. The merch that looks valuable until you really look at it. The content that keeps getting resold in slightly different forms. The paid editions that feel smaller than they should be. And the systems that charge you for convenience. On their own, you can justify most of it. But together, it paints a completely different picture. One where the focus slowly shifts from making great games to finding new ways to monetize every part of them. And the real question isn't whether people will notice, it's how long they'll keep going along with it before something finally changes. Thanks for watching.